Hello everyone, and welcome back to this retrospective series on the legions and their Primarchs. I am the Darklight Emissary, here to give you a brief overview on each of these legions and their Primarchs. And this episode is on the two missing legions, the 2nd Legion and the 11th Legion, and their Primarchs. Now, this one is going to be a bit different from the others because there is no substantial knowledge about these legions. It is meant to be that way, and I'm going to dispel a couple of misunderstandings for those that want to know. But otherwise, it's just going to be my speculation and community speculation on what these legions were, what they possibly are, and what possibly happened to them. So the main misconception with these legions is that they were created by Games Workshop to be just blank armies for people playing the tabletop of the game, and that they were just there to be an idea bank for people. But the actual lore behind them is that one of the main writers, one of the main creators of Warhammer, created the two missing legions as just to kind of add more depth and mystery to the overall setting. He kind of conceptualized that these legions were forgotten by the Imperium and by the Emperor, not out of malice or out of hate, but almost as a forgiveness for that was his perspective on it. The way it seems like the modern lore has kind of taken it is that these legions somehow severely embarrassed the Emperor, or were otherwise unstable, mutated, or corrupted. But we are not sure why it was warranted for them to be completely banished from all Imperial records compared to, say the Traitor Legions, which, they completely destroyed the Emperor's plans. But while they're not widely known in the 40k era by the common people of the Imperium, they are known to Imperial leadership, what their true origin was. Robot Goleman speaks as much on those Primarchs when he comes back in 40k. But he mentions that the two missing Primarchs and their legions, specifically the Primarchs, failed. And that's all he really says, is that they failed and the rest turned against the Emperor. So he does qualify that somehow those two failed, and they failed so much that they were removed from all histories. And so related to that, Robot Goleman was one of the Primarchs, along with Rogal Dorn, who seemed to possibly have gained the missing legionaries from those legions into both of those legions. There's rumor that the Ultramarines swelled in size around the same time as these legions went missing. That's conjecture still, though, but it's very possible. And at one point, Rogal Dorn finds a sealed off area with the sigils of these two missing Primarchs, and he actually confronts Malcador about them, and Malcador says that, Dorn, you asked me to, lock all memories away about, the missing Primarchs. And Dorn's like, I wouldn't do that. You're lying. And Malcador's like, fine, here, have your memories back. And when Dorn gets the full reality of what had become of the missing Primarchs and their legions, he's like, oh no, I really did want them to go away, didn't I? He's like, yes, you did. But whatever the Primarchs did, it did not extend to their legions of the Space Marines, so it is speculated that they did get merged in as Marines for other legions. But then they were probably similarly mind wiped so that they didn't remember their Primarchs anymore, because I imagine they wouldn't have wanted to do that. Now, personality wise, we only know a bit about the 2nd Primarch. Fulgrim, in his Primarch novel, it muses about how even the 2nd Primarch was, criticizing him, and that that Primarch was normally contemplative and without humor. So kind of stoic, kind of serious of a character is really all we ever get about the second Primarch. And I don't think we really hear anything about the 11th. One of the only other things we get mentioned about their reaction to anything was Lorgar and Magnus, the Red, have a conversation. And apparently it was brought up that the Emperor considered expunging the Word Bearers and Lorgar for their failings, but Magnus, Russ, and a few other Primarchs argued for, them staying, and Russ said, he doesn't want to see another empty, statue spot for one of his brothers. But at the same point, Lorgar actually starts talking about the missing Primarchs a little bit. He says something like, I still remember the look on their face when, and then Magnus cuts him off. He says, remember the oath you took to not talk about what happened there anymore. And apparently there was some kind of council going on because Magnus, at the Triumph of Ulanor, where you had apparently 9 Primarchs gathered, as Magnus says that there was 9 Primarchs gathered in commentary to Mortarion. Mortarion says, or Magnus says, this has not happened since, and Mortarion's like, I know well, when that last happened, and we promised never to talk about it again. So apparently there was 9 Primarchs to witness whatever the Emperor did to those Primarchs, whether he just executed them personally, banished them permanently. We really don't know what happened to them. There's speculation that maybe the Space Wolves were sent at them, but the more I read about it, the more I've reread about it, that seems less likely and was just pure rumor because of Russ's propensity for being the executioner of the Emperor. But and Russ likes to brag, so he might like to think he did something, but if he did, he doesn't have any memory of it either. The 2 beings that have any memory of the missing Primarchs and their legions are the Emperor and Malcador. And Malcador is dead, and the Emperor is on the Golden Throne. So anything left about these Primarchs is completely lost. One of the only other things we really know about them is that they took part in the Rangdan genocides. And so there is speculation amongst the community that perhaps one of the Primarchs turned against the Imperium on the side of the Rangdan, or was brainwashed or brain controlled by the Rangdan against the Imperium, which I suppose getting perverted like that by a Xeno race, I could see that possibly as an expungement reason, but that still doesn't ring true because, 4 of the Emperor's sons get turned into perverted, warp creatures, into demon princes of each of the chaos god aspects, and then 2 more eventually become demon princes. And as far as we know, their records have not been completely removed from the Imperium. They're just more restricted, whereas again these 2 completely were wiped, and it's not entirely sure why. All we know is that Malcador knew quite a bit about it. Malcador was the keeper of secrets and master of one of the assassin houses. He knew about it. The Emperor knew about it. A few of the Primarchs did know about it, but had their memories altered to never remember it. When it first was happening, when their names were being removed completely, Horus, Alfarius, and Jagate Khan confronted Malcador about it, and Malcador and Horus argued about it, and Horus tried to say the name of one of the Primarchs, and Malcador choked him with his psychic might and nearly choked him to death right there. He said, "I will unmake you if you don't shut up," basically. And but he relented, and that's one of the last times they were really talked about. And there a few other mentions are like the Word Bearers. They're shown a vision of the Imperial dungeons where the Primarchs are created, and they see the cylinders of the missing Primarchs, and they talk about how if they wiped them out now, they could avoid so much embarrassment for the Imperium, and that's where a lot of speculation about the Ultramarines recruitment numbers increasing rapidly. And, like the other word bearers are like, that's just speculation. And it's like, but it did happen. The numbers did increase rapidly right around that time period. So again, pointing to, the other legions absorbing their legionaries. And so beyond that, Horus and Horus was shown a vision as well of the Imperial dungeon during his conversion to chaos, and he also is like, there's untapped potential here, but so much embarrassment for the Imperium here as well when he sees he considers one of the capsules a mistake, one of his brothers a mistake. So there's a lot of regret and sadness. One of the only other mentions is actually from the Emperor directly. The Emperor, in his conversation with Corax, when he met Corax, mentions how there is, his brothers, and he's one of 18. But then Corax is like, yeah, but my legion number is 19, so how does that work? And the Emperor's face falls and shows like grief and sadness, and is like, the other two are, a story for another time for us to talk about. So the Emperor seemed, if he would have had more time, intent to tell Corax more about those two. And the Emperor seemingly, showed emotion indicating loss. The Emperor is often portrayed as cold and callous to his Primarchs, or dismissive of them even, or seeing them as tools instead of sons. But the more I read about it, there was so much put in place for the Primarchs that if they were simply tools, the Emperor wouldn't have created statues of them and wouldn't have dedicated, like, there was a place in the palace for each of them to have like their own like house, like, and where they could have learned as kids, at the feet of probably the Emperor and Malcador and other leaders if they hadn't been scattered. The Emperor had prepped very much, and I think that his callousness is more by omission than commission. I think he expected some failures amongst them, and then since it took him a long time to get all of them back, he was in a rush he was up against a clock of some kind, and the clock was altered or sabotaged by chaos, against his will. And so that's my thoughts there. And, with these two missing Primarchs, not sure. Ultimately, I think that something happened during the Rangdan genocides with at least one of them. The other one, is anyone's guess. It is mentioned by an Emperor's Children Marine, Tifabius Bile, that the second Legion and their Primarch ranged out far into like some unknown space and possibly discovered something forbidden, and no record of what they found is mentioned anywhere. So perhaps one of the legions was killed off or repurposed against the Imperium with the Rangdan, and the other one maybe found something that consumed them or something. Because one thing that did happen during the first part of the Heresy was Malcador sent one of his knights errant to Baal, to the homeworld of the Blood Angels. And at this point, the Blood Angels and Sanguinius were missing, and had been for years after going to the Cygnus cluster, which is where they fought the forces of Khorne and Slaanesh for the first time, and were confronted with chaos pretty blatantly for the first time in the Horus Heresy. And so this knight errant went to their homeworld and delivered a black scroll, and apparently he mentioned that it was a scroll indicating that they were going to disband the Blood Angels officially and reshuffle them into the other legions, and that these have been delivered 2 other times. So seemingly that seems to indicate that the missing legions were destroyed somehow, wholly, at least in structure, and that any survivors of them were redistributed to the Ultramarines and Imperial Fists and whoever else got them. But again, ultimately, all this is just a bit of snippet and hearsay, and that's really kind of it. I can kind of ramble on and on with this, and I don't really want to. I just wanted to touch on this since they are the two other legions that we have as part of this series. I feel like I should do something with it, but I'll just the one thing to just note is, like, by policy and the actual lore creators and IP people at Games Workshop, there is not allowed to be a solid answer for these two Primarchs. Aaron Dembski-Bowden, one of the better authors of the Horus Heresy era, and just his books in general are just great. He wrote like the first Heretic and recently did Echoes of Eternity. He's just well regarded. He mentioned that it's not some secret that him and the other writers know about and are not allowed to talk about. He's like, there is nothing at the center of it, and that's by design, just to keep that mystery going. And I can respect that. It's fun to conjecturize and wonder in your head about, I think that a universe gets boring when every single thing is a known quantity. And I like that not everything is known about the Horus Heresy, about the Great Crusade, about the Dark Age of Technology, the Emperor, Malkador. All of them have some mystery to them left, and I think the missing Primarchs and their legions should remain the same as well. But it's fun for people to create the art depicting what they could have been and speculating on what happened to them. And so that's really all I have to say about this. So thanks again for tuning in. It's been great to make these videos so far. There's been quite a bit of interest in them. Still humble, small beginnings here, but it's doing better than I would have expected. So if you've been here since the beginning, or if not, if you're just barely finding this, I appreciate you for listening. I'll be doing some more. If you want to suggest further content, please like and subscribe and comment. I think I'm going to do either the Craft World Eldar next, or the Assassin Temples of the Imperium, possibly. The other option could be the Adeptus Custodes and the Emperor himself along with them, because the Custodes technically are another legion. They're just not a Stardate, but they are technically a legion of their own. So they might be fun to do as well. But if you have any options for me, any preference, please comment, and I'll take a look and we can discuss it further. But I'll be speculating on that. I might not put out a video over the weekend just to think on that and decide on something for Monday. So as always, bring your light into the dark places. Thank you for tuning into this, and we will see you in the next one. Thank you, and have a great day or night wherever you are.